Well, good morning, Southeast Texas. It's been a beautiful morning across the area. Of course, we started out in the 50s, even in Beaumont, about 58, 59 for a low. We had some patchy ground fog this morning up in the lakes area. We started out in the mid 50s. It was a cool morning. We're warming now. We should be in the low 80s for highs later this afternoon on our roofing 911 Skycam network outside our 12 studios, sponsored by Mid-County Plumbing. All right, let's go ahead and talk about Hurricane Melissa, which would be, the good news is no threat to us, certainly at all. It wouldn't come here anyway. We got a strong cold front on the way, but it's not even going to get in the Gulf of Mexico. So that's great news there. Our quiet hurricane season ended several weeks ago here locally. Got one little upper level storm system, got to point that out, spinning over portions of Kentucky now. Maybe that's what gave us the showers and thunderstorms a couple of nights ago. All right, let's zoom down to Melissa. And then what I was saying during the newscast, you don't see a satellite of a hurricane almost this perfect very seldom. This is about as nice as you'll see as far as a satellite picture. Of course, not the storm or the terrible weather, but just amazing satellite view as it works on off very slowly west. But notice in those last couple of frames there, already starting to try to turn to the northwest. And that's going to be one of the big problems with Melissa and Jamaica, is just the slow movement. And it's going to be catastrophic, unfortunately, for the whole lot. It probably won't be a whole lot left of the island once it moves across. That's certainly some bad news there. Just a terrible situation. It'd be nice if it kept moving to the west, northwest, get far enough away from Jamaica and then make a turn. Well, that would really, really nice, but just don't think that's going to happen. It's only been drifting to the west very slowly over the last several hours. Trying to slowly make that turn to the north, very slowly, unfortunately, and it should move across the western portions of Jamaica later tonight and tomorrow. And that's the bad news. At a snail's pace, too, still very slow. So the catastrophic winds and flooding will continue for several hours as it continues to drift on off to the west and now northwest and eventually north. And notice, of course, always with tropical systems, hurricanes, the east side or the right side is always the worst side. So with it making landfall in the southwestern part of the country to western part, that puts the rest of the country on that bad side. Now the catastrophic winds are right around the eye and the eye wall. That's where we have winds right now. They're sustained at 165 and they're gusting to 200. So picture, you see damage with tornadoes a lot of times up toward north of the plains. Picture a EF4, EF5 tornado. Those are pretty much the wind speeds for an EF4, EF5. Picture that slowly moving across the western portions of Jamaica. Slowly, at those kind of wind speed, an EF4, EF5 tornado type winds. So that tells you how the devastation is going to be. There won't be much left, unfortunately. And I know a lot of folks tried to get out there and get out of there, but just didn't have the means to do so or kind of ran out of time. But we do expect it to make landfall late tonight, throughout the day, tomorrow, right in this area here. So catastrophic conditions, unfortunately. It's located about 145 miles southwest of Kingston, Jamaica right now. And another thing you got to remember too, this is not counting the massive storm surge they're expecting with just no protection on the coastline there. So just tremendous storm surge on top of, with it moving that slow, we'll add 30 to 40 inches of rain. And then on top of that, you have the mudslides and things like that. So in the mountainous terrains, and speaking of mountainous terrains, the higher you go up, those winds are going to be even higher. So if there's any folks staying or living in some of the mountains there of Jamaica that are above sea level, those winds are going to be even higher. You could see winds 220 to 250 in a few spots. So not going to be a pretty scene at all once this makes landfall late tonight and tomorrow. And eventually working on off to the northeast towards the southeast Bahamas. It'll be slowly weakening beginning then as it heads up toward the southeastern Bahamas. But just a terrible situation in store for the folks there, and even portions of western Cuba. Seeing quite a bit of activity as well. All right, let's take a look at the track. Of course, Category 5, just south, about 100 miles south, just off the coast of Jamaica. You've seen some of the video earlier from Jamaica of the heavy showers and thunderstorms and winds they've already seen. Well, unfortunately, that's nothing compared to what's coming later tonight and tomorrow. Let's put this into motion now. And it crosses the island, begins to weaken. In fact, down to Category 2 by Wednesday morning as it approaches the extreme southeastern portions of the Bahamas and works on out to the northeast. And it'll pick up speed a little bit too. What you got to remember is the upper trough that's digging through the western United States and northwest U.S. that's heading for the central plains and the southeast U.S. that's bringing us our cold front. That trough, as it gets closer, is going to pull it on out and will move it on out quickly, but unfortunately not quick enough for Jamaica. Unfortunately, we'll get rid of that and hopefully no more activity to have to track the rest of the season, because for the Gulf of Mexico, hurricane season's been over for a couple of weeks anyway. Category 2, and will continue to weaken as it heads on out. All right, temperatures here locally, low to mid 70s, 76 in Orange, 73 Lake Charles, 76 Kirbyville and Jasper to 3. So most areas should top out this afternoon. I'd say lower 80s, maybe 81, 82. Not bad at all. Then we'll drop on down tonight into the 50s again for the lakes, probably mid to upper 50s lakes, 60 to 62 along Interstate 10 coming up for tomorrow morning. Oh, lots of clear skies across the region. The last storm system that gave us our showers and thunderstorms over the weekend, you can see it spinning west of Atlanta now. That's moving on out to the northeast, and we're left with dry high pressure. The atmosphere fairly stable, so in pretty good shape there. And we started out, as we said this morning, with a little bit of patchy ground fog. We may have that again tonight and tomorrow morning. Another weak front across portions of central and eastern New Mexico this morning. That's about it. Otherwise, it's fairly quiet. All right, let's take a look at Futurecast, because we may have some scattered showers and maybe a rumble of thunder or two tomorrow evening around 7, 8 o'clock as that strong cold front moves in. Let's take a look at Futurecast. Of course, we're beginning to warm up. We're already in the mid 70s. Should top out, as we said, lower 80s under mostly sunny skies to sunny skies this afternoon. Not much wind. Now the winds will pick up a little bit, not much, but a little bit tomorrow off the Gulf, and that'll start bringing back some moisture ahead of our cold front tomorrow night. It looks like we'll have just enough moisture coming up by Tuesday evening to give us a chance of a few showers in the forecast. Maybe a thunderstorm or two. We'll show you that in just a moment. But this evening, still very nice. Mid 70s with a light south flow at 7 p.m. 1 a.m. in the mid 60s, and we'll drop on down to the lower 60s tomorrow morning. Some upper 50s, mid to upper 50s still across parts of the lakes area this afternoon. Notice not a lot of wind. Here comes the showers. They're developing along that front, work into the triangle from the northwest along the cold front. No severe weather is expected. In fact, some areas probably won't even hear any thunder with this coming up tomorrow night. There'll be a couple of thunderstorms. We'll give it a 30 to 40% coverage coming up for tomorrow evening. It's going to cool off pretty quickly. In fact, by Wednesday morning, we're expecting lows to be in the low 50s with north winds around 15 to 20. It'll feel like the 40s when you wake up Wednesday morning. High pressure at the surface builds in. That'll give us some chilly mornings in the mid 40s for Thursday morning, and some lower 40s for Friday morning behind the front as it continues to work on out to the southeast. All right, let's take a look at the forecast for the rest of the day. Look for a sunny skies, no rain expected. Highs in the lower 80s this afternoon. Notice the winds, still pretty light, northeast to south, 2 to 5 miles an hour. Pretty light stuff. Tonight, mostly clear. Could see some more patchy ground fog. The winds are still pretty light tonight. Lows tonight, mid to upper 50s in the lakes. Low 60s here in the triangle, 61, 62, maybe 63. Winds are still pretty light tonight. And as we look at our next 7 days, and we'll check our phones to see if we've had any texts come in. No rain today. Tomorrow, 40% coverage toward dark, 6, 7 o'clock as that front works in. And then Wednesday, we start out at 52. And look at these highs on Wednesday and Thursday with sunny skies, beautiful weather coming up. Mid 60s, that's it. Notice the winds on Wednesday. It's going to be windy, northwest 10 to 20, may see some gusts to 25. That's going to keep temperatures in the 60s with that cold air advection. 46 when you wake up Thursday morning, up to 66 in the afternoon. Lots of sun, still a little bit breezy, but the winds are coming down as surface high pressure builds into the area on Thursday. That'll set the stage for the coldest morning on Friday. We drop to 43 degrees. How's that? A little bit warmer Friday afternoon, but still nice, 69 degrees. Now over the weekend, we get return flow back slowly. No rain expected over the weekend. I don't see any fronts coming in at the present time for Saturday or Sunday. Northeast to south winds on Saturday, southwest Sunday, 47-75 on Saturday, 54-77 on Sunday, and then back to the low 80s a week from today, next Monday. So looks pretty good. So beautiful forecast coming up, expected across southeast Texas. Of course, pretty nice the rest of the day today. Most of tomorrow looks good, and then after about 6 o'clock tomorrow evening, some scattered showers and a few thunderstorms moving in with that front. And you can see the temperatures behind that. All right, let's check our phones and see if we've had any questions or comments come in. And don't see any. You can text us at 409-749-9302. Send us a weather question. You got any questions, comments? Any questions about the cold front coming in or the nice weather coming up on Halloween, which is Friday? Nice weekend coming up the way it looks right now. Of course, we'll see some scattered showers and thunderstorms coming up for tomorrow evening at 30 to 40%. But for this time of the year, you really can't beat this. These temperatures for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning, and Saturday morning, well below normal. You know, we normally don't see a front of this magnitude till usually in November. But hey, we'll take it. You know, it's been warm a lot lately, and it'll continue to be pretty warm over the next 12 to 18 hours or so before that front works on in, that's for sure, because it's a strong front. You will certainly notice it, that's for sure. All right, one more look at Melissa. Weather here locally is pretty quiet, trying to stretch the time here a little bit. You can see the eye about 100 to 115 miles southwest of Kingston, and drifting west very slowly over the past 12 hours. Notice on the last couple of frames, my finger right there, unfortunately starting to make that slow turn to the northwest and north, and that's going to continue overnight tonight. Should make landfall slow as it's moving tomorrow, the western portions of Jamaica, which unfortunately the east side of a hurricane's the worst, and the south coast will be facing that. So storm surge is going to be incredible, devastation. Just don't want to even see the pictures beginning tomorrow from Jamaica, because it's not going to be a pretty sight, unfortunately, at all for those folks there. And hopefully as many people got out of there as they could. Now, once it makes landfall, as we said, it'll finally start picking up speed, start to weaken back down to Category 2 coming up as we head, let's see, this Wednesday, that would be Thursday, down to, well, actually Wednesday evening down to Category 2 once it begins to move into portions of the extreme southeastern Bahamas, and most of those folks will be out of there by then, but it'll be a lot weaker by then. Of course, once again, no threat to the Gulf. That's the great news.